So tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Roy Hopkins. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, 1968, in the 60s. I come from a family of 11 children. My mom had 8 girls and 3 boys. I'm the first of the oldest boys. Um, Growing up, I remember growing up in a household of 11 children. There were never really 11 of us living in one house at the time because from what I can remember, all of my sisters, they were pretty much grown and old enough, married and out on their own. But I do remember times as to where we would all get together. My mom would have little parties, and there would always be music in the household, and just laughter and having good times, pretty much. That's me.
Where are the places have you lived in your life?
Where places have I lived in my life? Born and raised in Brooklyn, I was always a very adventurous person. I love to travel a lot. I lived in California and LA for about a year back in the early 90s. And then I moved back to Brooklyn. I lived, where else? Pretty much New York all my life. South Carolina was one other place. My mom, she left in 1983 to move back to South Carolina. And pretty much me, my brothers, and some of my younger sisters, we did the schooling and stuff down there. Then every opportunity I had, I went back to New York. And then years later, of course, I decided from Brooklyn to move to Atlanta, Georgia, to experience something new. One of the opportunities I had, though, was to move to Europe, but my mom, she talked me out of it, of course. You guys know how mothers can be. She didn't want me to go so far away from her. And me being the mama's boy that I am, because I love my mom so much, I decided to give Atlanta, Georgia a try. And since I've been here about 11 years now, not 11 years, oh God, 19 years. It's going by so quickly, yeah. I've been here 19 years now. Time goes by very quickly, so here I am, Atlanta.
Which ties into the next question. Who are you?
Who am I? Who am I? That's a very good question. Who am I? I mean, do we really know who we are? Do any of us know who we are? For a long time, I didn't know who I was. I only knew a part of me. A young boy, grew up to be a young man, still not knowing really who I was or who I am. I know who I am now. Took me 50 years in the making to actually find out who I am. I knew a part of me was missing as a young boy, as a child growing up. I've always felt a disconnect, an emptiness, a void for that reason of not knowing exactly who I was as a young man growing up in a single household, single family household. My mom, she raised all of the children by herself without a male figure being present. So I've always wondered about who I was. Never knew my dad for that reason. Me and my sisters have different fathers, and my brothers have different fathers. I was the only one who did not know his father, and for that reason, growing up, I never knew who I was. I never knew that side of me was missing. But as of today, I can speak completely different about it. I know who I am now. I'm very proud of who I am, and the journey continues.
On that journey, what steps have you taken to find out who your father is?
Excuse me. The road hasn't been easy, but I have always inquired with my mom and different family members on who that side of me was, where did I come from? My father's family, is there other siblings, aunts, cousins, and stuff on my father's side? Do I look like him? Do I talk like him? Do I walk like him? All these things as a young boy would desire from his father, his dad. So as years went on, many, many years went on, because I'm 50 years old now, I decided to take the Ancestry DNA test. I've seen the commercial on TV several of times, and I just felt like something was talking to me, And I sat on my couch one night, and they ran the commercial, and it was like, get to know what parts of the country or parts of the world you're from. And I was like, that would be kind of interesting, that would really be kind of interesting. Never given in thought to anything of finding my dad or looking for my father, because to be honest with you, I kind of gave up on it, because I was like, I'm running into brick walls and everything, and God knows if the man is still around or if he's still living. But that did not suffice the void that I was feeling inside, the brokenness. So I decided to order the test, the Ancestry DNA kit. And when I did, it came, I ordered it in 2017. It was a Christmas present to myself. And when it came, it sat on my countertop for about a month, until January 2018. I had phone calls from friends, from family, asking me, hey, did you do the test yet? Did you get the results back yet? I'm like, nah, I didn't do the test yet, because it's still on my countertop. It's still sitting up there. Not to say that I was apprehensive about doing the test. Maybe in a sense I was, in retrospect. Looking back on it, I don't know. I had mixed feelings, mixed emotions about all of it. And one of my friends in Brooklyn called me, and he was like, Roy, what are the chances of you finding your dad by taking this ancestry test? I go, really? Never really given it any thought, but what are the chances? What are the chances of you finding your father after 50 years on this earth, not knowing anything about the man? No name, no address, just a description of what he looks like. How can you find anyone based on that? Even today, with the police department, with criminals, you can't base off a description. They still rely on DNA, right? So, with that said, I got the kit, I ordered the kit, came, I looked at it, I examined it, took the test, mailed the information in, but this didn't happen until January of 2018. Mind you, I ordered the kit in December 2017. And so, when it came, when I sent it in, the results came back rather quickly. And I started getting all these email notifications about you have family, your contact, your cousins, fourth, fifth, sixth cousins on Ancestry. So I was pretty much blown away by the process. But first, when I saw, all of the maps which shows you what parts of the world, what parts of the country, where you come from, and how much of this you have in you, and what percentage of that you had in you, all of that was pretty much very interesting to me. But the most important part of it all was seeing all of these people coming up as cousins, first cousins, second cousins, with different names. A lot of them look very much similar to your family and to yourself. So it was a bit overwhelming, because it was coming there were so many connections being made based on your DNA. on a tube of spit. On a tube of spit. All of this family came popping up. So I didn't know what to do. I reached out to a few people. Some folks responded, some folks didn't respond. Some folks still haven't responded. Some folks responded and stopped responding. They shut you down rather quickly when they realize that you're trying to find a certain person for that reason. I don't know why. So I called customer service and I said, listen, this is my story. I don't know my dad. I never knew my dad. Never knew nothing about my father. Only a description that my mother was consistent with from when I was a child to a grown man. And from hearing little things from my older sisters. So the lady with customer service, she tells me, she says, listen, sir, in your case, this is what you want to do. You want to target the first and second cousins only. She says, in your case, because you don't have anything at all, that would be your best way of finding anything, any attachment to your father or his people. So that was my focus. That was my focus point from then. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. I went forward. So any and everyone that came up as my first and second cousins, possibly third, I sent pretty much all of them a generic message explaining to them who I am and my story. I don't know my dad. I'm looking for my father. Could someone please help me? That was my message. Help me. Can anyone help me?
Did you get any responses right away, or did you have to wait?
Actually, the responses started coming rather quickly, somewhat quickly. There was a gentleman that hit me up first. He came up as a first or second cousin. And we started to communicate. He was asking me questions. We were both excited, I believe at some point. Just asking questions, who's your family, where you're from, who's your mother, who's your father, because all these names that started popping up as first and second cousins, there were no one that I know of on my mom's side of the family. So that kind of excluded her side of the family. So I'm like, what are the chances that these folks are from on my father's side? What are the chances? I believe God, and miracles do happen. But what are the chances after 50 years I found my dad? What are the chances? So me and this guy, we went talking back and forth. We exchanged last names of our family members, the last names that are listed in the family. And the names that he came up with did not ring a bell at all. There was nothing, no names that were on my mom's side of the family. And I pretty much know all the names on her side because she has always kept us connected as children. So I'm like, well, this has to be someone from my dad. So the guy says he's from Brooklyn, but he lives in South Carolina. So at some point, he says, well, we may be cousins and our parents may be relatives of first or second cousins or whatever have you. So I said, here's my number. Please, give me a call. Let's talk. Let's create a dialogue or something. Let's talk. I will have a lot of questions to ask you. So the guy never called. So like I said, it's a hit or miss. It's almost like playing the lottery. There's no guarantee that anyone will respond to you. Excuse me. But it does give you the times that they were last seen or logged onto the site. But again, it's like playing lottery. There's no guarantee. There are no guarantees in it at all. Then I got another match from another young lady, maybe a few months after that, maybe less than, I think about a month and a half after I didn't get a response from the gentleman. I got a response from a young lady, and I, with the same story, same generic story, nothing changed. And her response to me was, hey, you look like my family. You look like a lot of the men in my family. So we started the same process, exchanging information, last names, who's your family, who's your mom, who's your father. So I don't know who my dad is. That's the purpose for this video, and that's the purpose for this DNA test. So her response to me, she says, well, you look like the Hopkins men in the family. I said, Hopkins? That's what the other guy mentioned. So that seems to be a common name. Doesn't ring a bell to me. Hopkins. So then she starts to send me all of these pictures of these Hopkins men that she says that I resemble. Maybe about 6 or 7 different people. And I was like, okay, I see a resemblance somewhat. Not really, but yeah, somewhat I can kind of see it. So she was adamant about, you look like the Hopkins men in my family. You know, you look like my uncles, my cousins, and blah, 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 whatever have you. So we got on the phone. To make a long story short, we exchanged numbers because we talked. I was just taken aback that, is this finally it? Is this finally the closure that I needed? Is this my dad's people? Is this my father's people? So she says, well, we'll try to get to the bottom of it. So we did our own little investigation around and asking questions, and she went and asking her family and showing my pictures around to some of her families, and she said the response was pretty much, oh yeah, he's a Hopkins. He's definitely a Hopkins. He looks like them. So that's pretty much what set the course for me, you know, on this journey to where we are in this seat, to where I'm sitting today and doing this video. Because at some point, I'm just fast forwarding. I'm not going to take up much of your time. I'm just fast forwarding. From that point, I ran into a brick wall because the family that we thought of the Hopkins were to be my dad's, they were not. They actually turned out to be my first and second cousins. Isn't that something? So, you know, I stopped. Everything happens for a reason. So everything came to a halt. And I got worried. I'm like, what do we do now? You know, I can't give up here. It doesn't stop here. I'm going back to Ancestry looking for answers, other family members. Anything you can find. Sharing a story with friends and family members, co-workers, I'm like, this is too good to be true. It's just, it cannot be happening this way. It's too good to be true. So due to the lack of response from that side of the family, who happens to turn out to be my cousins, there was another young lady that appeared on Ancestry throughout this time, who also came up as a first and second cousin. I sent her a message because I felt like, okay, I think this is where this story ends, because something else is about to pick up. God is about to take me somewhere else right now, and I just have to be ready for the ride. So I sent the young lady the same message that I sent everyone else, and she says, this was around Thanksgiving time, 2018. So I go back, it says, you have a message from so-and-so. I go and check the messages, and she says to me, hey, I've been on here looking for you. I see that you haven't been logged on for a while. This was right before Thanksgiving. Please call me. She says, I will check on here every day until I find you, until you come back on. But here's my number, give me a call. You look like my grandfather. You look just like my grandfather. This is what she said. I showed your pictures to my sister, and she says you look like my grandfather, Mose Hopkins. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Unbelievable.
So did you ever get the picture of your grandfather?
Actually, yeah, I did get a picture of him. The day me and her communicated, I was at work and I called her. I ran to the break room. I'm excited. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to see this picture she's talking about. So she actually did a side by side from my profile picture on Ancestry and with her grandfather's picture. She texted to me.
I'm looking at the picture. Did you see a resemblance?
Sorry. When I saw the picture, it was almost like as if I was looking at myself. The resemblance was uncanny, unbelievable. And that's when I knew I found the right family. And that's when I knew. I stared at the picture. I got weak when I looked at it.
And this was your grandfather. Take your time.
Yes, this was my grandfather. This was my father's father.
And did you reach back out to her after you got the pictures to find out?
Yes, I did reach back out to her. I called her that day when I got home. Couldn't wait to call her. Then she says to me when we talked, "You look so much like my grandfather. You look like my father's father." And then she says, "You look like my dad."
I'm sure that might have floored you once you heard that.
Really, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. I cannot believe this is happening. 50 years. It's not like I had adoption papers or I was adopted and you had some type of paper trail where you could find someone. I had nothing. Nothing. No name, no family, no address, no phone number. Nothing. Only a description of what he looked like. Never knew if he was alive, if he was dead, if there were other children, which in this case it is. So she began to send me pictures of him. And the pictures that she sent me, I kind of didn't really see a resemblance at first, because I think just the initial shock of it all, you know, you're completely, it's like someone knocks the breath out of you. You're completely blown away by it. And then she tells me, "I still think you look like my dad. You look like my father." So as I began to look at these pictures and research them and analyze them, and I'm going to break it down. I'm looking at the pictures of her dad. She sent me tons of pictures. Then I go back to thinking and remembering from a child, from a young boy, that same description that my mom always gave. Her description of this man never altered. Never. She was always consistent with what he looked like and where they met. It was Brownsville, Brooklyn, 1968. At a bar in Brooklyn. Yes.
At that bar, did she know anybody else there? Did she have anything in common with anybody there?
Well, the thing about it, from what I'm hearing, and this is like from some siblings, my mom would go, she was in a bar person. She would go with her sisters, and her brother-in-law, because she was married at the time, and so was this man. He was married. They were both married people with children. It was a neighborhood bar in Brownsville, I believe, off of Bristol Street at that time. This is from what I'm hearing. And it wasn't like a bar, but you know how folks get together and they make a bar, they make something for the neighborhood folks to come together. And my second oldest sister used to go, and she says it was pretty much a homey place, that everyone there was from South Carolina. She said everybody was from South Carolina there, and it was kind of like a family type thing. And that's where my mom would go, and this is where she met my dad. This is where she met this man. And her being from South Carolina and everyone else in here from South Carolina, there's no telling. You're talking in the 60s,
Okay. So this journey that you're on, where do you think it's taking you now? Have you met any of the other side of your family, the Hopkins side?
I have.
Or spoken with anyone?
Well, I have been introduced. I have been introduced through social media to a lot of the family. The story is it's so intricate details. It's too much to really go into about how I've gotten to this place. But I'm really enjoying the ride. It's amazing. It is amazing what Ancestry DNA has done. It is amazing. My life has changed, and it will never be the same for the next 50 years or until God calls me home. It will never be the same. I have spoken with some of my dad's sisters. I have met my nephew, who amazingly we look exactly alike. He's 25 years younger than me. The aunts look like me. Uncles look similar. And to top it off, my grandfather, my father's father, everyone says it looks like you've been reincarnated because you guys look just alike. And I understand that sometimes with DNA it'll skip a generation or two if we know anything about that. But it has been a ride. I have met my nephew, who's an incredible young man. I have so many nephews on that side of the family that I'm waiting to meet. There's a whole list of folks. From what I gather and from what I've been told from the very beginning, there's a whole lot of Hopkins. Hopkins, that's how you spell it. I am a Hopkins by blood, not relation. I am ecstatic. My heart is filled. My heart is filled. And often I find myself in tears. Some sad, some full of joy. The sad part is that my dad had passed away 2 years ago when my mom did. So I never got a chance to meet him at all. My mom passed away 2 years ago. Though my dad is gone and he's not here, when I look in the mirror and from what I see of his pictures, I can feel his presence. I can feel him. Just like I feel my mom, I can feel him. And he's left some remarkable things behind that only the human eye will understand. I will be meeting my aunts in Detroit in a couple of months. I will be meeting the rest of the family members. I have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of cousins in St. George, South Carolina. I have an aunt, my father's sister, in Brooklyn, New York. Not Brooklyn, I'm sorry, the Bronx, New York. Brooklyn is where I'm from. What else? I am most grateful. I am so appreciative of the warmth, the welcome of this family once they acknowledged who I am. Their willingness to receive me as an uncle, as a nephew, knowing that this is my brother's child. He's a Hopkins, he's one of us, he's family.
So do you feel now you found the other half of you? When I say that, I mean, you know, your mother's side of the family, now your father's side of the family.
Right.
You're getting to know, and every day it seems like, you know, from what you're explaining, it seems like it's a new adventure every day for you, and how you're dealing with that.
It is a new adventure every day. Simply because of the reception that I'm getting from this family. So they are excited about it just as I am. Just loving, warm, welcoming, beautiful people that I cannot wait to meet. My cup is almost full. It's not full just quite, but I know who my father is. I know who my dad is. And some of you may say, well, that's you should be complete. Your cup should be full. My cup is not full because my dad is not here. But I have his family. I have sisters. I have brothers. I have nieces and nephews. I have a whole nother side of people to explore. The Hopkins side of my family, that is. And once I meet these women and make connections with the rest of the family, then my cup will be full. It's almost there. It's getting there. But I want it overflowing for the next 50 years. The next 50 years. In life, we have no guarantees at all. And I am on a journey. I am so blessed, so grateful, so thankful for God for guiding my steps. I believe this has already been done. We're basically just walking in the direction that God has set us up on our paths. And what if I never did the ancestry test? What if the other person never did ancestry? I would still be that lost child, that lost boy deep inside, which reminds me of a poem from this movie, Antoine Fisher, Who Will Cry for the Little Boy? I would still be that little boy. I'm a grown man now, but I would still be that little boy crying on the inside. that longing for your father, for your dad. Every one of us has a story. Everyone has a story. Doesn't matter what walk of life you may come from. You may have heard it. You may have dismissed it. Or you may be even going through the same journey on the same path that I'm going on. I never thought by taking the Ancestry test that this would open up a whole new world for me. I had no idea giving a tube of spit, I would be able to find a whole generation of people on my father's side. It's just a miracle. And every time I think about it, I get so full, so tears, and it's just amazing. I can't even, it's done the words to describe it. To understand how we got from taking the test to where we are now. Some folks say, I wonder, it's just, why did it happen now? We don't know why it happened now. But the desire to find my dad, my father, my biological father, was always there. It's not something that I just woke up and say, hey, I want to find my father. Let me see who my dad is today. It was always there. From a small boy all the way up to a grown man. And I guess with that desire in my heart, it was time. It was time. It was time. So for that, I'm grateful. I'm thankful.
Now, after you meet your family members, which will be very soon, what do you think your legacy will be? Will that leave you complete now?
That would leave me very much so complete. My legacy would be a young black man growing up in Brooklyn, born in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, with a single parent raising 11 children. My mom never had it easy, but she made it through the rough times. To raise a young man without a father in the household, and to become the man that I am today, to be sitting in the seat of wisdom that I am sitting in today, that would be my legacy that I would leave behind. I am happy of who I am today. I am grateful for what I've become today. I am ecstatic. I am so many words to describe on what's becoming, on what's to come. I am a Hopkins. I am a Hopkins, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Well, I want to wish you all the best with your journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome, sir.